And good evening and welcome to the meeting of the Murfreesboro City School Board. We're glad to have those of you that are with us tonight. We're glad to have those that are watching at home, tuning in to see us as we conduct our business for the city school. At this time, we'd like to ask you to please stand. We have a second grader from Hobgood, Kyle Anderson, and a fifth grader from Overall Creek, Haley Brown, to lead us in our pledge, followed then by a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now our moment of silence. Thank you. I do want to welcome some of our guests tonight from Leadership Rutherford. They're here visiting with us, and we're glad to have you with us. Hope you'll come back soon. Board members, I have two cards I'm going to give you, one from the family of Willie Arms and one from the family of Fred Mullins, and let you look at those and read those. You have your agenda before you. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Second?
Second.
Dr. Brown, thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Then there is none. Thank you. All right, communications. Dr. Gilbert?
I'd like at this time to ask Lisa Trail to come up for communications. And the first one is probably the most exciting.
This is School Board Appreciation Week, so congratulations. Thank you for serving. Mr. Washington, if you will join me, that would be awesome. So thank you all for serving as our school board representatives. We appreciate you. Mr. Washington is going to be speaking on behalf of the city.
Good evening, school board.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
I've been asked to read this proclamation on behalf of the council and the mayor, and I'm glad to do so. From the office of the mayor, whereas an excellent public education system is vital to the quality of life and economic development of our community and state, and whereas school board members represent a tremendous resource as local decision makers, diligently working to meet the challenges of a dynamic world while ensuring that every child receives the services needed to prepare them for that world. And whereas school board members support and appreciate the efforts of Murfreesboro students, educators, support staff, and administrators, which have led to increasing the academic and personal success of children as demonstrated by various quantitative and qualitative data. And whereas the men and women of our local school boards are elected by the people to make decisions most appropriate for their communities and deserve recognition and thanks for their countless hours of service to public education in Tennessee. Now, therefore, I, Shane McFarland, Mayor of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, do hereby proclaim the week of January 24th through 30th, 2016, School Board Appreciation Week in the city of Murfreesboro, and encourage all citizens to join me in this worthy observance. Thank you, School Board.
Thank you. Thank you.
And as you can see, as you look around, we have lots of posters for you that our children have made, teachers, the administration, even with the snow days. The posters came around. So thank you again for your service. Also, 2016 marks the 125th anniversary of Murfreesboro City Schools. We're going to be celebrating that all year long. So look for some upcoming events, and you'll probably receive those in the next week or so. February 1st through 5th is School Counselor Appreciation Week, and we want to recognize and thank our school counselors for the hard work they do to support our children throughout the district. Obviously, communication is a little bit long this time because we've had 2 months without a school board meeting, so just bear with me for a little bit. February 5th is the City Schools Foundation Excellence in Education Gala. The honorees at this year's event are Ed and Andrea Lowry. Ray Sudden is the guest speaker, and Black Fox Elementary is the highlighted school. So we want to invite you guys to join us on February 5th as the foundation once again puts on Excellence in Education. Murfreesboro City Schools was awarded the Shining Star Award as part of the 2015 Summer Food Service Program. It was titled No Tennessee Child Hungry Excellence Awards. This award was given to MCS for being a trailblazer using innovative ideas like the Chow Bus that we did over the summertime. Sandy Shealy was there and accepted that award on behalf of Murfreesboro City Schools. Board Chair Butch Campbell has been appointed to serve on the TSBA Nominating Committee. The Nominating Committee will have the responsibility of nominating officers for the TSBA. Congratulations to the Murfreesboro City Schools Transportation Department for receiving the Mayor's Cup for outstanding participation in the Murfreesboro Christmas Parade. Many of you were there. They did an outstanding job. They pulled buses, reindeers, and everything else. So it was a beautiful day for a Christmas parade. Nice and warm outside. Congratulations to Northfield 6th grader Alyssa Curbs for placing first in the Tennessee Association of Conservation Districts. Wait a minute, let me do that again. Tennessee Association of Conservation Districts Poster Contest for the state of Tennessee in the 4th through 6th grade category. That's a mouthful, but she was first place, so we're very proud of her. Congratulations to Discovery School Robotics for competing in the South's Best Robot Competition at Auburn University in December. Discovery School ranked 3rd in the Neptune Technology Group Most Elegant Robot and 13th in the final robot rankings. And I know I don't have to remind you, but Discovery School competes against many other schools that are middle and high schools. Mitchell Nielsen second grade teacher Brittany Hardy and Principal Robin Newell recently traveled to Vicksburg, Mississippi to deliver a presentation on school clubs at the Leader in Me Symposium. You know, Leader in Me began at Mitchell Nielsen about just over a year ago, and so the fact that they're already being invited to speak on the topic is pretty awesome. Leah Barch, Cherry Ross, Tamara Cosby, Hannah-Laura Dickerson, David Lockett, and Erica Gardner will be presenting at MTSU's Elementary Integrated Curriculum Conference on February 6th. Our thanks to Miss Rebecca Sublett of Overall Creek for inviting one of her former professors, which happens to be the Commissioner of Education, Candace McQueen, to come and read in her classroom. So the Commissioner of Education was at Overall Creek, did a great job. We also wanted to thank Mr. Barch and his teachers, Anita Spann, Jennifer DeFeer, Cherry Ross, Tamara Cosby, and Jessica Burns for helping put it on, because when the commissioner comes to your school, you want to be prepared for it. We also had several BEP grant winners this cycle. Donna Beers at Bradley Academy, Debbie Hickerson at Cason Lane Academy, Owen Davis at Irma Siegel, Meredith Gilliland at Hobgood, Carrie Horton at Mitchell Nielsen, Sue Yunker at Mitchell Nielsen, Rachel Prater at Mitchell Nielsen, and Jessica Bloom at Scales Elementary. All received BEP grants. We also want to take time to thank our many community partners for their support during our Season of Sharing event. We could not do Season of Sharing without many, many nonprofits and businesses throughout Murfreesboro. Blue Raider Athletic Association has just announced that they are adopting John Pittard Elementary School. They had a meeting with them in December. They're very excited to actually reach out to another school, so it's really cool to have them on board. Black Fox Elementary School would like to thank Howard and Sally Wall. They have been supporters of Black Fox for 25 years and once again gave them a $10,000 donation to that school. So thank you to Howard and Sally Wall. Farm Credit Mid-America has donated $4,200 for a greenhouse at Cason Lane Academy. It's part of our Farm to School program. They also donated furniture to Reeves Rogers and Bradley Academy, so thank you to Farm Credit. This month, Middle Tennessee State University's tennis program taught tennis lessons during our PE at 7 of our schools, and also MTSU's music department and Dr. Stephen Smith actually brought performances to our schools. Little Red Riding Hood came to 6 of our schools. So, that said, I also want to take this opportunity to go ahead and announce our Teachers of the Year for 2016. We'll get more information about this coming to you in just a few days, but for right now, we'll go ahead and make those announcements. Black Fox Elementary, the Teachers of the Year for Black Fox is Deanne Stevens and Sunita Smith. For Bradley, Stephanie Turner and Rebecca Few. Mitchell Nielsen, Rachel Prater, and Matt Clarity. Scales, Beverly Soaps and Zan Lasco. Hobgood, Cherry Purdue, and Meredith Gilliland. Casem Lane Academy, Carrie Smith and Elizabeth Shepard. Siegel Elementary, Rachel Haynes and Angela Pope. Overall Creek, Jennifer DeFeer and Luke Hill. Discovery School, Jenny Newsom and Charlotte Young. Northfield, Mary Orcutt and Kelly Ruth. John Pittard is Spring Harris and Kenny McWhorter. Reeves Rogers is Julie Parrish and Aaron Lebo. So, all that said, I also want, before we finish up, last but not least, Bradley Academy Musical Theater is here tonight. Students and teachers just recently attended the iTheatrics Junior Theater Festival in Atlanta and did a super job. We are very proud of them, but I want to go ahead and turn the podium over, if it's okay with you, Dr. Gilbert, to Bradley Academy.
While she's setting up, first of all, thank you, School Board, for all that you do. You guys are amazing. We appreciate all of your hard work. We'd like to take an opportunity to thank Dr. Gilbert and the School Board for allowing our Bradley drama students to go to Atlanta. I know it's a huge investment, but it's well worth it. Our kids enjoy it. They get to experience something most elementary students don't get to experience, so it's an honor to be able to go, and we thank you very much for that. This experience puts us at the forefront of theater education in elementary school. There's only 8 elementary schools that attend out of 115 schools, so it's huge for us to be there. And our kids, not only do our kids get to experience something amazing, but Ms. Isom gets to work with theater educators who can help grow her professionally, which in turn benefits our students. So we thank you for that. Also want to thank our parents for their support. There is no way we could pull it off without our parents. They dedicate so many hours to Miss Isom. They share their babies with her, and then they help make it happen. Logistically, it's a lot of work, and so we thank our parents for being there and supporting us, and not only with drama, but with Bradley in all. They support us, so we appreciate that. With that said, we've put together a little PowerPoint, and I'm going to let Allie take over and share some information about Junior Theater Festival and what our kids were able to experience.
So this year was huge for Junior Theater Festival because it was their 20-year anniversary. The scripts that we perform for the public are written as Broadway juniors. So they're Broadway musicals that are written for the length of time that it's appropriate for our age group of kids that we have. So the 20 years was a big celebration for us. Just a reminder of what JTF is. It does stand for Junior Theater Festival, and it is the largest celebration of musical theater for young adults. And it's always held during the Martin Luther King weekend in January, so it's always that set date. I will let you know that it's grown so large that they've opened up a JTF West out in California. So this, like for Bradley Academy to be on the forefront of theater education, and this is huge for us to be right up in there right away. So this was amazing. Right here in this shot you see his name is Marty Johnson, and he is working with our students on the main stage. But it has allowed everybody that goes to JTF, it gives them the opportunity to experience the transformative power of musical theater through watching performances, attending workshops, and making connections with other musical theater groups from around the world. And this actually became Marty's cover page for his Facebook because he was just so impressed by working with these kids. He loved it quite a bit.
And I'm going to jump in right there. That stage, you don't get to see what it really is until you see this picture, or really you don't get it till you walk in that room. There are 5,800 people at this event. So our kids are on this huge stage and there's all these people, but when they walk in they get to see the empty room, and it doesn't even hit them even when they see all of those empty chairs at the top till they come in that night and every chair is filled with other theater kids, and then they're wow that they were the chosen group to get to go up there, because that's a huge honor in itself to be able to go up on that big stage and perform.
Mm-hmm. So just kind of keeping this image in mind, at the top you'll see all the seats are empty, and then at the bottom you'll see everybody in the audience. When we walked into the theater to go rehearse, to perform in front of everyone, one of my students behind me said, "This is where we're performing." And I said, I already told you that. But yes, this is where we're performing. I don't think it hit him until he saw all the bodies in the seats. It was huge. So like we said earlier, did you want to talk about that or you want me to? Okay, go ahead. What does it mean for us to be on the forefront of theater education? So we are the first, we represent 3% of elementary schools doing drama during the actual school day and after school. And so we are pioneers. And the people at Music Theater International in New York and the people at iTheatrics, their partners, they really appreciate working with us. And so for us to be able to get that one-on-one with them, it's huge. And so it's not an opportunity that it's extended to very many groups. Because I'm not going to steal your thunder, because I know we talked about that. So go ahead. It's good thunder. So what do we do at JTF? So first of all, every group that goes performs 15 minutes of a musical. So this year we took 15 minutes of Lion King, which you have an opportunity to see, and I'll talk to you all about that when we're done. And then they get to go to workshops where they work with professionals from New York, dance, they work with vocal, they work with acting, and they get to do all that. And then on top of that, they get to go to, so there we are in rehearsal, and there we are doing our performance, and then our adjudication. So we perform for professional judges from New York. They get to watch us and then give us feedback right away on what we need to do to be fabulous. But actually, what happened, Miss Ortiz, when they performed?
They made an audience of adults all break down into tears. It was so moving, the amount of love and passion they had when they were singing and when they were performing. The judges started off, and I think they were like, oh, we opened for this session, and I think they were just kind of like, oh, they're just elementary kids. And by the end of it, I'm videotaping, and he's wiping his tears, and when he gets up, he's like, wow. So it was really cool to see that, and then several adults that were sitting near me were like, I don't know these babies, but I love them already. You know, they were in tears. So it's pretty amazing to get the feedback. And something that hit me this year was a lot of the groups that performed had already performed their musical either in April of last year or had just performed it in November, and so they had all their rehearsals done. Our babies don't perform until April. And so they're still working on it. They don't have it mastered yet. And the judges were thoroughly impressed that they were this far along, only having rehearsed the first few months that we've been in school.
Yeah. So every group that goes, they do the adjudication, the 15 minutes. Every group that goes does the workshops. Very few groups are asked to showcase a brand new musical that is coming out. So what that means is Mary Martin, Peter Pan, if y'all are familiar with that, they just wrote that into a brand new musical. Last year we did Disney's Peter Pan, completely different, if you know Mary Martin. They asked us, iTheatrics gave me a call, and they said, will you please work with us? We want your group to work with Joanne O'Kane at Roy Waldron and at University School of Nashville. We want y'all to all work together and to be one large group, and we want you to perform Mary Martin's Peter Pan. Wow. So
while they're learning Lion King.
While we're learning Lion King.
They're learning Peter Pan.
I said, well, can I call you back, Marty? He said, sure. And I will not run, because we don't run in the hallways at Bradley, but I quickly went down to Miss Ortiz's room and I said, can we do this? And then I don't remember what the logistics were from there, but we got a yes officially. We might have talked to you guys. I don't really know.
We talked to you guys.
Yes, I don't really know. All I know is I got a yes. And so basically what that meant is 111 kids met one Saturday a month for 5 hours. They committed 5 hours of Saturday, 5 months in a row, to working on this brand new music. So it was 3 songs, choreography that changed like who knows how many times. These babies had to work hard. So we learned, did choreographing for all of that and Lion King. And so by the time we were 4 months into rehearsal, Mr. Marty from iTheatrics showed up, and he watched them, and he goes, okay, now we're going to change, da-da-da-da-da. And these kids just went with it, like they were professionals. And he was so impressed by just how focused they were. And I'm like, they're 8.
The night before performance, he changed about 4 or 5 things on them.
Again.
At dress rehearsal. He's like, I want you guys to do this instead. And they just went with it. The kids, they were very flexible. Something I wanted to say here is I think it's huge to note that this is only our second year to go, and to be chosen out of 115 schools to showcase only 1 out of 8 elementary schools is huge. And several people actually stopped Miss Isom and said, how'd you get picked? Like, why are they up there? And then when they performed, they were like, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge honor for Bradley, for theater, and for MCS to be represented that way in a national conference, international conference.
So that was, I just get excited about it. Okay.
And that's them performing.
Yeah, there they are. I mean, that's some live shots that we got. And you'll see on the picture of just the 3 girls, the one on the far, my right, some of your left, she's wearing the green next to Peter Pan, is our Peter Pan from last year. Like, she was right up in the mix, like it was her job. It was fabulous. So we also did Tech Olympics and technical workshops. We have the youngest tech kid there, and Matt Krause. He's the head sounds guy for JTF. He did, if y'all watched any of the live stuff, like the Sound of Music Live, or the, what else was out there too? I'm not going to ask you. Y'all know what I'm talking about? All they did, the shows live? Matt Krause is in charge of all the sound. And so he worked with Ethan one-on-one doing stuff with him. So I'm like, yay, it's exciting.
It's huge.
And there we are with our dance and our vocal and our acting workshops. While we were there, we also got to watch performances. Mary Pope Osborne was there. Our librarian went with us, and she stalked out Miss Mary Pope Osborne to get an autograph. Only a librarian, right? Darren Chris, Jody Picoult, and there's a plethora that the kids got to watch, and they loved it. Broadway Slam. Did you want to talk about that? I got it? Okay, good. Basically, we got to put some of our top kids into a drawing, and they got to be picked out to do a Broadway Slam. They had 45 minutes to prepare, dancing and singing, and then they went and performed on the main stage. So right here we have 2 of our fabulous students. They were so thrilled to be able to do that. And then our 2 award-winning students, which I believe they're in y'all's notes, and they're also on the MCS website. These 2 fabulous friends, they won All-Star for their performance for our 15-minute adjudication. I just got an email confirmation this week from Lindsay Lupine. She's one of their main people at iTheatrics, so we can set up their trip to go to New York so they can work for a week. Wow. Rehearsing and practicing. Yeah, we're working on getting all their money set up so we can get them to go. All the new stuff that comes out, they workshop it with these guys. And so they go for a full week. Last year, one of our girls went and workshopped Junie B. Jones. And so I have all the photos of that.
I think the board needs to supervise.
We would love it.
We would love it, and it's a huge experience
It's
to
so
go.
exciting. I
It
can
is.
just tell. It's just so electric.
It is.
I think the most exciting, besides watching the kids and seeing their reactions and watching them grow and learn, is this honor that Ms. Isom and the students received is the Freddie G. Excellence in Music. The only elementary school to receive it, and it's based on their performance vocally. You can see where we made it up on the big screen there, and then here's the trophy for that. It's a huge honor. Ms. Isom works very close with Ms. Blooding, and you may or may not be aware that she's been out for a little bit. She's got some things going on, but our babies worked really hard to earn that for her, and it was huge for Ms. Isom to receive that award and for the kids to get it, and to be the only elementary school. Very, very big honor in her name. So
I just feel like she was there. Don't get me started talking about it. I'll cry.
we're not going to let her talk
Don't
about
let me
that
talk about it. Okay. So just to kind of recap, because I know that we're going way over. I'm sorry, Lisa. I can't help it. I'm like,
she's not the drama teacher.
I'm going 3.
We could go over on some other things that wouldn't be nearly as much fun. So thank you.
You're welcome. I know that Lisa already sent this to you, but just so everyone else is aware and just, the community, we love to do reflections with the kids. Like, what did you learn about JTF? What did you love about JTF? We did these interviews. We recorded them. And so y'all can see that on the website. It brings me to tears because I love them so much because it's just right out of their mouths. Like,
And
what did you
it's
learn?
cold. Like, I was one of the ones videotaping, and I'm just asking the questions and to hear their responses. They're so genuine and they're real. So if you have an opportunity to see that, it's well worth the watch.
It's awesome.
I saw it, and first of all, the quality of your videotaping was very good.
Well, it's in my pocket. It's right
I
here.
love
that iPhone 5.
that those children talked about how this built their self-esteem. And I can't imagine. I mean, I can't get in front of a crowd like they did, and this is just wonderful. This is life-altering what you're doing for them. How much fun.
We
Thank
appreciate
you.
your support in
Yes.
allowing us to do it. We
Yes,
really do,
'cause-
Dr. Gilbert.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's easy to say yes and it's easy to say no, and I'm just grateful that y'all trust us enough to say yes, so we have this opportunity. Like, we're really grateful. And so thank you.
I will echo what Collier said. The video was excellent. I did have an opportunity to watch it, and like you say, the children it's just immediate reaction. And it was very, very well done. You are to be commended for developing and teaching and working with these children in the way that you have to bring them as far as you have. And I'm sure they'll continue to go further. And someday we're liable to see some of them on the big screen.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Campbell, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Last plug she wants to get in.
One more plug, I'm sorry. If y'all want to see them live, that 15 minutes we were talking about for Lion King, it's going to happen on Thursday at Patterson Park. Yes. We have an African American cultural night. Starts at 4. The kids are performing at 6, though, on the Patterson Park's in the theater. On the stage. I was going to say stage.
And we'll also have other Bradley students. We've had a visiting artist, Kofi, who's been there working with them on African drumming. We'll have other students performing some African drumming as well, so you get to see several performances.
So if y'all want to see that 15, because you're like, oh, I got to see what she's talking about, come on Thursday. But I'll send you invites for April when we perform the big thing at the Center for the Arts. But just thank you so much for putting your trust in
Other
us.
comments from board members? I don't want to shy away from
I just
anybody.
wanted to say congratulations and thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll say this. I don't know if the others know it, but December of 2014, I asked the kids to come sing at the Business Before Hours for the Chamber of Commerce. And they basically provided background music, singing Christmas carols, but they also closed out with a couple of Katy Perry tunes. And that Katy Perry tune was stuck in my head for like 2 or 3 days. Eye of the Tiger. And every time I hear it, I think about them. And I remember telling y'all the adults were taking cell phone video of the kids. But in September or October of last year, 2015, I got an email from the chamber. Can we please have the kids back? They were a great hit last year. We'd love to have them back. And so now, we didn't have to ask, can they come back? They came to us and asked, can the Bradley kids come back? They were such a great show last year, if you will. And then
Did I tell you they asked us again
they,
before I left?
yeah, they asked us to come back. And they actually said some nice things about them during the program. So word's getting out.
And we appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else? Ms. Phillips, I know you're just itching because this is right down your alley.
Oh, it is. I'm so excited. I can feel the electricity, and I'm so proud of our system because our system really invests and believes the importance of arts. You know, science is important, of course. Math is important, of course. But the arts are integral to so much more than just what enriches life so much. So I'm excited for you all. I really am. I really think we need to have a Murph Bradley Arts ongoing project where the kids do skits and develop stuff and do all kinds of things. That's what I think we need to do. I'm going to go on and thank some other people too. I just wanted to mention because we had so many wonderful communications, Ms. Trail, that I really appreciate all the teachers who went to that extra mile to apply for a grant, and I do appreciate all their hard work, all the sponsors, but also all the teachers and kids who wrote us cards and made us posters, and I've got these exciting books, and I don't know why anybody would give me a Little Rabbit Runaway book, but I've got one, and I'm excited to take it to the school and read it or read it sometime. And this lunchbox fanny pack on steroids? I don't know, but it's really cute. It's cute, and I know we're going to enjoy that. And thank you. And I enjoy serving with these very talented, dedicated people here on the board.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, thank you, ladies, very
Thank
much,
you.
and congratulations. All right, those are all of our communications. You have before you consent items. Do we have a motion to approve the consent items?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. King. Second?
Second.
Brown, thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. All right, action items.
The first action items is the evaluation of Linda Gilbert for last year. This is the same instrument that was used last year. So, Mr. Campbell, I'll let you take it from there as far as any discussion, and also as far as discussion of proposed timeline, if you have that. But you'll remember that there are three parts to this. You have the first part that is filled out by administrators. The second part is filled out by the board. The third part is filled out by the board, but it is primarily based on test scores. Your Appendix C has counted as 50%. Your Appendix B, which is your part, has counted as 35%. And Appendix A, which is the administrators, has counted at 15%, which is relatively it's pretty close to what happens with principals and also with teachers, and so that is the reason it was designed that way. Last year, you'll remember that you changed the rubric to 5, and so we left that again this year because that is what the teacher rubric and principal rubric is also based on. If there are any changes, if you'll let us know, TSBA will be doing the tallying, so you will be mailing the information directly to them, as will the administrators. I proposed a timeline to Mr. Campbell this afternoon that I would get you the evidence, as I usually do, by this Friday, and then if you all could have the yours filled out, and also if we can get the administrators to have theirs filled out by the 9th, which would be Tuesday the 9th, and then that would give TSB a time to tally and to get the report back by the February 23rd board meeting. So, Mr. Campbell, I'll let you handle any discussion.
Right. Any questions or any comments pertaining to the evaluation instrument or the timeline? Ms. Ranier?
Well, I know last year we discussed a little bit, wondering if we should have some teachers be part of this, and I think that Mr. What's his name? Our friend at TSBA that was here, he said that it was a matter of just adding to it or whatever. But my big question is on the annual objectives. The fact that the test has changed so much, is this going to be an accurate reflection, or is this going to just not work well?
I think it will be as accurate a reflection as the teachers' scores were last year. I think that we'll have to see, because right now we are just learning what the new accountability will look like. Right. So I think next year, reflecting back on this year, there may need to be some changes. But I think that what you have here, and looking at the scores that we have, we'll be able to pull that information from them. It's really important to me that my evaluation is as close to, now the principal's evaluation looks different. It just looks different. But the bottom line is that after I evaluate them, well, I may think they're wonderful and marvelous, and do. When those scores hit, sometimes that 50% can affect it. And so that's the reason that I still feel strongly that 50% still needs to be based on test scores if their evaluation is going to be based on test scores.
Is that state law for the teachers and the administrators? It is.
Well,
is there any way that could be changed by us as a board, that it's not 50% of the
Well,
score?
you could do anything with my evaluation.
Well, I know, but just as you're saying, we want it to reflect as much or as closely to theirs as possible, but we don't want them dinged a lot either.
I understand. I think it's a fair evaluation. I mean, I don't necessarily think that the state evaluation, the way it's designed, is fair, but I think it's important that whatever my scores are, that it reflects. Yeah.
Now, understanding, too, this is the evaluation of the previous school year, not now.
Right, so it's based on last year's scores.
Percentage for teachers is going to change
Well, I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. The percentage will change. I would like to, and I've made no bones about it, I would like to see a year of no accountability on teachers or schools or districts. We are still getting information. We had a webinar on Friday that was about accommodations, and thankfully some of our folks, even though it's a snow day all the way across the state, there were about 400 people that were listening in. So we're still trying to get clarification. I understand state law and what it says. But it is what it is.
Okay. Dr. Brown?
There are a lot of subcategories in Appendix C regarding some of the scores.
That's right.
And to be sure that I fill this form out accurately, would it be possible to get a summary of the scores from
Yes,
the year?
I can give you that information.
Okay.
I'll give you that information. I did last year, and it'll come straight from the report card.
Okay. Ms. Phillips?
This is a tiny little thing, but under vision, I would like to add 2 words, or I'd like to ask you all to consider adding 2 words. It's number 3 under vision, where it says clearly articulates the system's vision. I would like to add and promotes. And of course, I think we're already doing that, but I just think it needs to. And the doctor
Clearly articulates and promotes
the system's
vision.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it's 3 words.
That sounds good.
Any objection to that?
Would we have to have a motion to make that change?
Well, you're going to make a motion to approve the instrument, so you can include that in the motion.
Okay.
Now, everybody has already got a copy of the instrument, correct? Rather than us going back and having to reprint, retype and all, can you just remember that on number 3 vision it says articulates and promotes systems vision?
And I think that you'll send it out to them, right? Okay.
Write it in.
Yeah, we're not going to do this online. It's going to be mailed to us, right? Or
I didn't get one.
We mailed
I
it last
didn't-
year.
right.
Mailed them out, like,
It
we
was
did
mailed out, so she
yeah,
can
it
make the
was on-
changes.
Yeah, it was done on paper last year.
I printed off my own copy.
All right, any other comments pertaining to the director's evaluation?
And state the dates one more time, please.
If I could get the evidence to you by Friday,
This Friday.
I'll get that to you by Friday. And then if you could do a turnaround and get it to TSBA on the 9th. And then that will give them 2 weeks to take a look at it and tally it and get it back by the time of the board meeting on the 23rd.
And that will be our responsibility to mail it to TSBA, correct?
Yes.
That's what I thought, okay. So we want them to have it by the 9th, correct? Okay. Doesn't give a lot of turnaround time, but that's okay. We need to get it done, get it moving. All right. Jerry?
Can we get a copy of the previous year's electronic copy? Would that be evaluation? All right.
You want the scores on there too?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Do I have a motion then to accept the instrument with the one change that we have?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Roll call vote, please, ma'am.
Mr. Barrett.
Yes.
Dr. Brown.
Aye.
Mr. King.
Aye.
Ms. Phillips.
Aye.
Ms. Vernier.
Aye.
Ms. Smith.
Aye.
And Chair Campbell.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Your next item is the school calendar. If you look at this, you will notice that it is similar to this year's calendar. I did show this calendar to the Teacher Advisory Committee and also another committee, and have shown it to all the principals, asked for their feedback, individual feedback. and also district staff. So if you don't mind, I'll go through it and kind of tell you what the differences are between our calendar and the county calendar. I think you should have that before you, I believe.
Can I pass those out?
Sure.
I have it.
Oh, it looks so bad.
Didn't we used to have a calendar committee?
We do.
That was when, yes, we did. And that was when you still had collective bargaining.
When you still had what? I'm sorry.
Collective bargaining.
Okay. Thank you.
But that's one reason, Ms. Phillips, when you were asking about that, I thought it was important to
Do you
get
have one
input
more?
from.
Wait, they've got one more. So that-
On the calendar, and I'm going to talk in reference to Rutherford County's calendar, we will be beginning on July the 28th. They will be beginning on August the 1st. We do have the 2 work days that are built in between our first half day, or the 2 in-service days between our first half day and our first day. You'll remember last year we learned from the state that we cannot put the half day next to the first full day if we wanted to take 2 of our stockpile days for in-service days. And in talking with the principals, they felt, I have not heard any complaints from teachers, and talking with the principals, they felt that those 2 days really helped, particularly when our system is growing fast and we had new standards and we had all those new things that came at us this year. They really felt like that those 2 days helped. So looking over the calendar itself, we've kept in the parent-teacher conference days. We do have our half days aligned with the county except for October 27th, and I'll talk about that. We have cut the last day before Christmas and the last day of school to a half day for both teachers and students. And we are asking our teachers to come in and do a PD on Election Day. We feel like it's a good time for PD, and the last time that we had an Election Day, I actually had a principal mention that. So taking a look at the calendar, again, you'll notice that we start on the 28th. We have an in-service day that day, and the 29th we have a system-wide in-service day. And then on the 1st, when the county starts, we have a school-based work day. We have a school-based work day on the 2nd. And then our students come in on Wednesday the 3rd for a half day. The county comes in for a half day on that Friday. You have our 2 school-based in-service days that are our 2 stockpile days. And by the way, those are the only 2 stockpile days I can find that we're using. So we have 13 total. That will leave us 11, and that change we'll need to make on the calendar. But I actually did talk to the state right before I left today and confirmed that indeed 13 days is where we should have begun. So you have the 2 stockpile days, and then we have our students' first day, which coincides with the county's on August the 8th on that Monday. Going on down into September, we align with Labor Day. We align with our student half-day PLC on Thursday. And then going into October, we have our fall break that aligns with the counties. That would run from October 3rd through October 7th. We have a parent-teacher conference day on October 27th. The county has a half-day PLC day, so their students will be in half that day, but our students will be out. We do feel it's very important, and parents and teachers both have said that they really like those 2 days that we have where we have parent-teacher conferences. I think the teachers are fresher. They can focus only on that. That gives them the flexibility, and this year we gave them really the flexibility with how they use those hours when they could arrange for their parents to come in. So we had even some teachers that came in early in the morning, then came in late in the afternoon, and I did give approval to principals to do that because it's important for us to have as many parents as we can. So however that day needs to look. When we go down into November, we have Tuesday is your election day. We will have our teachers come in for an in-service day that day. It hits at a really good time of the year. And again, the last day that we had election day, that was mentioned by at least a couple of principals that we try that. Our Thanksgiving break will align with the counties. On the 16th of December, we will have our student half day and our teacher half day. In the past, we have had teachers stay the whole day. I think we will be fine with teacher work days so that we can take that as a half day, and we'll be doing the same this year with the last day of school. Our winter break comes from December the 19th through January the 2nd. which aligns with the counties. We have an administrative day on the January the 3rd. That is the day when really it will be dependent upon the schools, what they do that day. But that also aligns with the counties coming back in January. We have the students returning on the 4th, which aligns with the county, Martin Luther King's birthday on the 16th of January. And then we have a student half-day PLC on Thursday, February the 2nd, a holiday, which will be President's Day on February the 20th. And then we have another half-day PLC on March the 9th. On March the 20th is our second Parent-Teacher Conference Day. And then we have our spring break from March the 27th through the 31st. Good Friday, and then when we get to May, we have our last day for students and a half day for students and a half day for teachers on May the 25th. The county has that as a whole day for teacher as a work day, and then they also come back in on the 26th, but we will be finished on the 25th. We do have our first 11 days out for inclement weather. They will be made up according to state law, and we're taking 2 of the days for stockpile days. So we have 2 of our 13 days that will be used for staff development. There was a change from the original calendar that I showed the teachers, and it comes down with the report cards. We had principals at our last report card period said that they wish they had a couple more days to get the report cards printed. And so when you look at this, the January 17th report card date is to accommodate that. We gave a few more days there, and I think that will be helpful. The report cards go home with our parent-teacher conferences in October, our parent-teacher conferences in March, and then our last day, the report cards go home. So that is the proposed calendar for next year. We feel like it's important for us to align as much as we can with the county because we know that we do have children that are in both districts. Any questions?
Now, what you have of what I gave you, what's on the right, that's handwritten, that's what the county is doing. The other half is what our county proposes. All right. Ms. Renier?
So the change that you've made, the PLC days, we always counted those half days to be the 2 stockpiles.
Right.
So
They do not
changed.
have to be that way.
Okay.
Our students are getting in their 3 hours and 16. They're getting in their
That's
full
what I
day.
thought. Okay,
Right.
So they're getting their full
Right.
day.
And that was the question I had. And so I feel pretty confident with that. We're going to go back tomorrow and take a look at that. And if that change, if there needs to be a change, that would be the change I would give you. But I feel pretty confident that we're good with that.
Well, I thought, and then I think the beginning with the children coming on Wednesday for that half day, because it does not coincide with the county, I
Right.
think that parents need to know that the reason being is so that we can have the in-service days
Right.
for the teachers and them get your classroom ready for the children.
Right.
And so that's the reason, but I'm sure attendance probably will not be at 100% that day.
Well, last year, with the growth we had,
You need that time.
we needed the time. And I think there was the feeling that, too, even the schools that didn't have a whole lot of growth, they met their students that first half day, and it helped with their planning the next 2 days. It just seemed to be a little smoother, I think. That's at least the impression that, and the feedback I got from the principals on that.
Well, I think it's wonderful, and we always requested these extra days when I worked on a calendar committee, so I know that it's beneficial for the teachers and the students.
Thank you.
Ms. Smith?
I'm sorry, I know you just talked about the very same thing, but could you put it in layman's terms?
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
what I see here is school starting August 3rd, and to me that's crazy. But
Okay.
that is way early, but I know that we keep backing up and backing up. But I am glad that we have some time, absolutely, for the
Yeah.
teachers to get together. So beforehand, so
Okay, we
why
have to
can't
have.
we go with,
Okay, we have to have 180 days, student days, and 200 teacher days. And so that is one reason Tennessee schools start when they start. That is the problem that we have with starting at Labor Day, because we would be going forever, or we would we wouldn't have any spring break and fall break. As far as why we have the half day and then 2 days and then the whole day, the state tells us, and trust me, I went round and around with them last year. Makes no sense to me, but that's what they said. We have to start school before we can take those stockpile days. So that's the reason you have the half day. Now, as it turned out, last year or this year, it worked really well. I really wanted to back up and have the stockpile days before we had the students ever start to school, but we couldn't do that legally. The way it turns out, it works well because, as I said, really our teachers get to meet the students. If there are changes in growth, then we can make those. They can adjust their classrooms if they need to. And then, too, you have the planning that can happen, and you think you have your planning, and then you meet your students, and all of a sudden the planning can change. So those 2 days proved to be pretty beneficial with teachers getting together, looking at what students they had in planning, but that's the reason for it.
I mean, I'm all for teacher planning. For sure. So this schedule gives us exactly 180 days?
You have... Yes, we will have 180 student days.
Okay. And why? And I'm sorry, the county gets to start on Friday because they don't have the half-day stockpile days.
Right. They're not taking the 2 stockpile days.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Ms. Phillips?
I know you're going to reassure me about this, but I just
Well,
want to
maybe
throw
not,
this out.
but okay.
Okay. I know that everyone works very hard to get as many parents as they can in on parent-teacher conference days. And we've arranged it the last year and this one, this upcoming year, to make it as easy for the teachers as possible. But if we're telling the teachers they can either come in morning or afternoon, are we making it as easy for the parents as possible?
Well, that's the reason that choice came, was we had, it really initially started with, Linda, we're having trouble getting our ELL parents in with their translators. But then what it turned into this year, I did have several principals call and say, can we flex the hours? And so I did that because they said we have some parents that can come at this time and some parents that can come at this time. And so we had some schools, and what I requested was that there would be an administrator in the school whenever they were having parent-teacher conferences, because that's really important. So it looks a little different depending upon the parents. And the important thing that I did emphasize was that those schedules need to be made when the parents can come, not for our convenience necessarily, but when the parents can come. And so what we saw in almost all of our schools, and I asked them to feed back to me because we're always reflecting on what we're doing to make sure it's the best thing to do. What I heard from most of our schools was that the attendance was really phenomenal. Now, I think that we'll see that attendance even increase more this year, because this spring a lot of them will be doing student-led conferences, and that's what a lot of them did this year. And so I know that you have different variables, so you can't say what variable really caused whatever happened to happen. But with very few exceptions, and maybe no exceptions, I would say that we're seeing a lot more parents than we've ever seen because of the days and the way we're having to. Yes, so I will reassure you that it is not. Very little that we do in this district is for adult convenience. It is for children's convenience. Now, it's important how we treat the adults, so understand me. But with this particular day, it's based really, I asked them to base it on when parents can come, and I think that's what they've done. I think that's the reason I got the phone calls.
I'm glad to hear that, because I worry about the parents that can only get there at 7:30 because they have to be at work by and so anything that helps them get in the door. And I just have to throw this out since you brought up student-led conferences. There are many positive things about student-led conferences, but I want to make sure that the parents have time to speak directly to the teacher, and that time is not lapsed, because some parents wait. I hear them talk. They wait, for months for that conference, because that's when they feel like they can really dialogue with the teacher about some real concerns they may have on one way or another. And so I want to make sure that in those student-led conferences, the parents have time to dialogue directly with the teacher.
Right.
Right. Other questions pertaining to the calendar? Let me just emphasize one of those, because I've had several questions about the election day, November the 8th, and because they're allowing county teachers to work the polls if they want to, and they can, but reminds you that is a day out of their calendar. they are not getting paid as a teacher that day. If they work the polls, they're working for the election commission, and of course they can earn some in-service credit, I think, but it's not double dipping, so to speak, as they're getting paid by the county as a teacher day and also otherwise. Okay. All right, any other questions pertaining to the calendar? Ms. Renier?
Not a question. I move that we accept this calendar.
I have a motion by Ms. Renier to accept the calendar. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Any other questions, comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think it's a good calendar, and the flexibility is important, so thank you for that.
I do have one question, please,
Okay.
ma'am. Who developed this calendar?
We look at what's happening with the county. We take a look at it first. So Melanie and I'll look at it. She adds up the days, and then what I'll do is take it to, like I took it to the Teacher Advisory Committee. Usually if I have teachers in the building, I sort of run down and grab them and say, can you take a look at this? And then we took it to principals, and I also asked for their feedback individually because I did not want any, I love principals, but sometimes I wanted to hear their individual feedback. And so that's the way we did that.
So you're getting feedback from principals and teachers as well, right?
Right. I think it's important. I just think it's important. So, and typically what will happen too is, like, if we try something new, like when we did the parent-teacher conferences, and I'm still checking on that, and I'll still check on it and when we have it in the spring and say, okay, what do you think? What do we need to tweak? And one of the things that came out was the flexibility to move those hours, because when we initially did it, we did it from 11 to 7. And so they said, we need the flexibility to do that. And I said, I'm good as long as you're getting in your hours and the administrator can be there and the parents can be there. So those kinds of things, and just like with the 2 days, going back and saying, how did this work? Was this something good? What's your feedback? Talk to your folks and see. So that's, I think it's important whenever we're doing something that impacts people, that as much as we can, that they have input in it.
Well, I think the flexibility is certainly good, but I also I know I can tell by the places I go, 2 or 3 days before parent conference and 2 or 3 days after parent conferences, you go by any school and you're going to find cars a lot of times on Saturdays and sometimes Sunday afternoons and other nights that they're there late, that they're having those parent conferences. So I think our teachers are doing everything possible to talk to as many parents as they can. Ms. Smith?
When do they have the tax-free weekend?
August, beginning of August?
August.
Early August?
Or technically, it was right before school, so now will they bump it up?
Yeah.
Or will it still be before the kids go to school?
We have not really, I think, and I'd have to go back and look, but as far as students starting school, I don't know that we have really moved that. I don't think we've moved that a lot in recent years.
I was just
But I could
wondering,
be
because
wrong.
I remember buying school supplies and going,
Yeah.
I had to get school supplies
That's
before the
right.
tax-free weekend.
That's right.
So I was
Hang on. Let's see. Okay, this year's tax-free holiday weekend begins at 12:01 a.m. on Friday, August 7th, and ends Sunday, August 9
Well, great.
at 11:59 p.m.
Okay.
So, straight from the state of Tennessee's Department of Revenue website.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, next item, school board calendar, meetings calendar, is that right? Am I jumping, I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump ahead, but, all right, you have that before you. Ms. Renier?
I guess we need to discuss just a couple of these things that Melanie or Dr. Gilbert has already put little notations beside. One of our dates is November 8th, which is the election day with no school. Whether or not we want to meet that day, the second November meeting is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. Then the March meeting is spring break, and I would assume even though most of us don't have children in the system, someone does and might be gone that week. So I don't know if we, and one of them is Valentine's Day. Didn't we run into that another year? Valentine's Day?
Yeah, we
The
did.
recommendation is that all of these are the second and fourth our regular meetings, is if you go ahead and approve the calendar with the meetings on, we're covered. Whereas if
Okay.
you don't put them on and come back and decide to have them, then we have to take out special advertisements.
Okay, great. Thanks for the info.
So we can always
We can
cancel
tweak
a
it.
meeting and not have a meeting. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Or we
Thank you.
could change the date. Okay.
Okay.
In that regard, I move that we approve this calendar.
All right, do we have a second to approve the calendar?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. All right. I guess we're ready for a revenue and expenditure report.
Well, you have one more thing under your action items, Mr. Chair. You have the approval to draft legislative resolutions. There had been mention by some of you that you would be interested in drafting a resolution in regard to some of the activities of the legislature. So having said that, I will leave the discussion totally up to the board.
All right, I'd like Mr. Barrett, if you will kind of jump in and dive in and get this, whatever discussion you think, because you're kind of been involved in that.
Well, the voucher bill just passed out of the Finance Committee 11 to 10, so that was bad news. I just found out. So
I've listened all day and couldn't.
they were still debating it when it just came out. So anyway, I would like us as a board for the third time to propose a resolution opposing vouchers to our legislative delegation and to the other members of the House delegation. I just read that we have a short window on this because it's going to go to the full House probably within the next week or two for a full vote on this voucher bill. So if we're going to do a resolution, we need to pass it fairly quickly. So that's my recommendation as a board. We go in favor of that. It's going to take money out of our system. It's not I'm a product of public education, and I know a lot of us are that sit on this board, and it's just not a good use of our taxpayer money. Put it in private schools. I just don't see the use of that.
And you said it passed out of what committee?
The House Committee, the House Finance Committee, and now it's going on to it's going to go to the Calendar and Rules Committee, and then they'll schedule a date for the vote, and that'll be within I'm assured that'll be within the next week or two of a vote. So we need everybody at home. If you're against this, you need to call everybody in our House delegation. That they all come out in favor of it, but they need to hear from teachers, they need to hear from parents, they need to hear from staff, everybody. People need to pick up the phone. You can't just email. You need to pick up the phone and talk to them and talk to their representative up there and tell them that you're not in favor of this.
I have a hard time. Well, wait a minute. Let me go back.
Me too.
What members of our legislative delegation were in that vote today?
None of them were on the vote today.
Okay.
The three people that previously approved it were Dawn White and Rick Woolman. Weren't they on the? But that was last year. They passed it last year. It got stalled in the House subcommittee, Finance subcommittee. Then it was able to come back this year right away. That's why it's gone through so quickly this year, because it was already gone through a couple of the hoops, legislative hoops. So.
Well, there are also some on public TV, but I'm going to say political shenanigans on get that vote done so quickly.
There was a little, yes. A poor fellow was out in the hospital getting some surgery, and they.
I have talked to most of our delegation within the last week.
Good for you.
And I have said to each one of them, it's hard for me to understand how they can vote in favor of something that both of the school boards that they represent have encouraged them more than one time to vote against it. Now, they always tell you that they're going to vote the way their constituents say.
But they don't.
But I haven't seen that so far, and I could be wrong, but that just kind of bothers me a little bit. Okay. All right, Ms. Phillips, and then Ms. Smith, and then Ms. Rainier.
Well said, Chairman Campbell. I appreciate that.
I heartily support a resolution. I do not believe it's a Republican issue or a Democrat issue. This is an American education issue, very complex. And if you just look at the surface issues, it can be deceptive as to what's happening to children and your tax dollars. So I would certainly heartily support a resolution, and I urge everyone to email, pick up their phone, call, do what they can, because these are your tax dollars that would be given to private entities.
Ms. Smith?
I also think that what you said was right on. And I know anyone that is watching this meeting obviously has an interest in public education. And if you will please, either you like vouchers or you don't like vouchers, but either way, please contact our legislators directly, because in my opinion, it takes away from public education in Murfreesboro and Rutherford County, and it really is just a negative support. We've got to reinforce the good work that our teachers do, and this takes away from what our public school teachers are doing every single day. So please contact our legislators ASAP.
Ms. Renier?
Well, not only the things that you've said, just the way that someone can submit a bill and then how it completely changes around. One that was brought to my attention was this bill by Todd Gardenhire. And last year he submitted a bill that public school teachers or PE teachers should teach children how to properly wear a bicycle helmet. Now this whole bill has changed completely, and it has to do now with whether or not TEA can do payroll withdrawal through the school systems. So it's not even the bill that began. And so I think that, just as Ms. Phillips was saying, things are not always what they seem, and you can read something and all of a sudden the next day or the next year or the next season, whatever, it's completely changed. And this has no bearing on anybody except that they don't want TEA to have a voice. And so I think that's another one that's kind of crazy. But along with everybody else, the voucher bill is really important for all of us, because that money that comes to us for your son, your daughter, if they were to go, or your friend's son or daughter, they go to another private school, the money that would come to the classroom, to the school for that child goes with them. And that means, for us it would be easy if it were one whole class of third graders from Bradley Academy who's moving, we can handle that. But when it's 2 children here, 1 there, 5 there, 3 here, it's almost impossible to keep up with as far as staffing for our schools and all the things that would be affected in public school systems.
Mr. Washington?
Yeah, you make some very good comments, and I was telling Gary that, let me get my date right, I don't have my phone on me, but I know it starts at 5 o'clock, but there's a joint meeting with them. I want to say it's not this Thursday, but next Thursday, but I don't have my phone with me, so we need to verify the date. But public and board, you'll have an opportunity to hear their responses, and you have a piece of paper. I got 9 million notes on it about bills filed for the 109th General Assembly that may have the greatest impact on Murfreesboro City schools. That's an excellent piece of document right there, because you've got to realize there will be a fiscal note going somewhere. When you take money away from one thing, somebody's got to pick it up. And all these dollars they're talking about, they're just projections, because all this is new. You don't know how it's going to come out. The county, listening to them, they're raising taxes basically because of the schools building program, the county schools building program. And that's what they're basically blaming it on. Hey, we got to have these dollars to keep up with these schools building. Their building plan, which is really, really aggressive. And you can get away with that probably for only so long. But you don't want the fiscal note, the local fiscal impact on who makes up that balance, that difference when you start losing funds. That's when tax bills will finally get it. They might get it then, because the building program has to happen with the county. I understand that, but some of the stuff I'm reading right here doesn't have to happen. And some of our most local, and I love them to death. Don't get me wrong, most of them. The legislators are good people. I don't know what's going on down there, but some of this stuff I'm reading, it makes no sense to me. But the voucher situation, that's for you school boards and residents that are listening, pay real close attention to that, because it's not just about vouchers, because the voucher system hadn't worked everywhere. Charter schools haven't worked everywhere. So it sounds like a good idea, but, you know, just pay attention and just be knowledgeable, and then vote your conscience.
Thank you, sir. The instrument that you see tonight, bills filed for the General Assembly that you have a copy of, correct? Everybody has this? Okay. I believe, Carter, was it you and Jared that attended a TSBA meeting and where they were encouraging school board members to go out and to visit in schools and meet with those faculties and explain to them what some of this is, and just encourage them to contact their legislators and let them know how they feel. I do know that Rutherford County has started that. They have done several schools already. They've got several to go. But we talked about it, and I think everybody here agreed that it was something that we needed to do. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, if you will please let, let Melanie know, all right? If you will pick 2 schools that you might be able to go and meet with that faculty. Now, you'll need to contact the principal. You may want to contact the MEA representative. I don't know. But just going and meeting with that faculty and just presenting them this document and saying, these are some things that are affecting public education, which in effect affects that teacher and what they can do every day during, within the classroom and things after school and all that sort of thing. And to encourage them to contact legislators, and I think there is a list of the legislators on the within that packet that represent parts of Rutherford County.
Mr. Chairman, what you have, the document that you have is a very objective document so that the public will understand that. The verbiage that is on there is straight from the bills themselves. The fiscal notes are straight from the Tennessee State Legislature. So there, within here, you have no opinion given about whether to vote for or against this, but it is a summary of bills that are education bills that may in some way, whether it's positive or negative, impact Murfreesboro City. So I wanted the public to know that this is an objective document that you are seeing. It does have bills listed, and the summaries are straight from the state legislature websites and the bills themselves.
Have you put those on the website?
No, I haven't.
Could we do that legally?
Yes.
Yeah.
If it's just a,
Summation.
Okay.
Yeah, that might be a good idea.
Mr. Barrett?
Yeah, this sheet is strictly informational, and no one, if we do this, no one's required to be there. We need to emphasize that. We're not requiring anybody to attend. It's just strictly information for the public and for the teachers and staff and everybody else, just to let them know that these are some of the bills that are being discussed that could directly affect them, one way or the other, however they feel, and we'll list all the legislatures there that they can contact.
Ms. Phillips?
So help me understand. So these meetings are separate from normal meetings that the school would have. And so this is not at a teacher
It would just
meeting.
be one of us up there saying, here's a list of bills that are affecting education that are being discussed currently, and read this list, and if you feel inclined, contact your legislator. Either way, if you're in favor of it, if you're not, either way, contact your legislator. And that's all it's strictly informational.
I guess I'm just trying to understand if it's a separate meeting or if it's a regular after-school meeting.
If you contact the principal, and the principal says, I'm having a faculty meeting on Tuesday afternoon at 3:30, and you say, can I come and present this? And they tell you, okay, then you're fine to go and present it, and then you can present it if they'll let you first, and then you can leave and they can have their faculty meeting. Or if they want you to, I guess it doesn't matter where, but probably that would be the easiest way. And there may be some times when you may just need to go and let maybe let the MEA rep in the building notify teachers that somebody's going to be there this afternoon from the board to discuss about issues in education. I know that's what was done at Smyrna when I went down there with the county, and they had 15 or 20 people there, which was fine. But you know, everybody can't attend, but at least you get the word out.
And he's right about it would be voluntary. So if it's going to be on the same day, and I will talk if the board decides to do this. We have a principals meeting tomorrow, so we'll be very clear about that. But let's say if they're going to have a faculty meeting, that they would set that faculty meeting time from such and such to such and such, and then set the other time for this. And it may be the same day, but it would be clear when those times would be.
Okay.
And we don't need to take a lot of time doing it. It won't take long to present it. I don't know what the best way is going to be to get these 2 pages printed, because we certainly need to give these out to those that are in attendance, and we don't want to go to the school and have the school to print them. I think probably the best thing for us to do would be to take it upon ourselves to get this printed. So many copies, however many you think you're going to need at that school, and have them with you so that we can give them out to those teachers that or other faculty members, staff members that are going to be there.
And I think, Mr. Campbell, if the board had mentioned, and I think Ms. Baker said that we'd be fine to have this on the website, so I think that may be the easiest thing to do.
I think it'd be good to have it, but I think we need to be able to give the teacher something.
Okay.
When we go to meet with them.
If you don't mind, I will get with Mr. Dickerson, who is the MEA president, and see. I'm certain that we won't want to use school funds for this, and see what his recommendation would be. I think we can work that out.
Do we have money in the board budget to print any of this?
I'd have to look at the individual line items. I think the concern is more the fact that you'd be printing something against legislative actions. So I would be very careful there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Ms. Smith?
So if we put this on the school website and it doesn't have a slant, and I put that same link on something in social media, and I put a slant to it because it's my personal account, is that okay?
As long as you're showing that is your personal opinion, you're not representing the opinion of the entire school board, that's your personal opinion, then that
I
is...
believe, or
right.
I think, is that sufficient?
Yes, the only time that it would be the entire school board's opinion is if y'all have taken a vote to pass a resolution. That's where the board speaks as a body, is through the resolutions. Otherwise, any opinions issued by individuals would be their own individual opinions.
So that'd be fine. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Rainier?
So should we move to have someone do a resolution, and I realize time-wise we're in a crunch here, that maybe each of us could run up to central office and sign if that's necessary, or do an electronic signature?
I still have the resolution that you all did last year.
Right.
What I'd like to recommend is that you allow me to take a look at that. I don't perceive that there would be many changes at all, but I would like for you to take a vote, for me to take a look at that and adjust it as I feel necessary, and then we can get to you to sign.
Would we want it just to go to our legislators?
On vouchers.
I'm sorry, what?
On vouchers.
Would we want that just to go to our legislators, or to perhaps the list that Mr. Barrett sent today?
I want to email it to everybody, because it's going to be a full House vote, so everybody needs to see it as a...
So all of the legislators?
Email it to some, but I would hard copies to our state legislative delegation, but email it to the rest of the delegation, or the rest of the House members. I mean, it's just an email. It's not going to be expensive. A copy of it.
All right.
They need to hear from us. The more they hear from us, the more they should listen. But
I have talked with Chairman Wayne Blair of the county, and they are also proposing and going to do a resolution. And as he and I talked, and I talked to Dr. Gilbert too, and Jared, the possibility maybe of waiting until theirs was done, but I don't know that that's going to be the case. If ours is only going to involve the voucher and we're not going to look at the other items that we have talked about, Dr. Gilbert, you don't think?
I think that's up to the board if you want to. I think that the voucher bill, since it's so immediate, I think that it would be, if I recall, our voucher bill was very similar to the county, so I don't think that is going to be as crucial as if there are other resolutions that you wish to do about other content areas, then we may want those areas to align with the county, since the only resolution you all really have done previously that would be related to what the county would be doing would be the voucher bill. So I think my recommendation would be to go ahead and do the voucher bill as soon as we can. And then I think the board can decide tonight if they want to pursue the other or any other resolutions that would have to do with the General Assembly.
Do any of you get updates from TSBA? Okay. I noticed in the last day or two they've had several comments, minuses pertaining to voucher bills and the voucher money and how well students have done, have not done. Those are certainly points to be presented, I think, when we talk to those people that are doing the voting. Jerry?
Well, I'll make a motion, we update the resolution we did last year, and let Dr. Gilbert update it for us, and we can all sign it, and we'll send it off to the legislature.
Hand signed.
Have a second to that?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Any discussion?
I just have a question. Now that Lee has gone from TSBA, what's the guy's name?
Ben Torres.
Ben Torres is doing it, because I saw somebody's name Wire or something yesterday or today.
I think it might be his assistant,
An
but
assistant,
Ben Torres
so Ben
is
is
the
the
one
one
that took
who's
over.
taken over.
Yeah, took over
Okay.
Lee's place. Yes.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Now, Dr. Brown?
We brought up the issue about going into the schools, and you had mentioned that we would tell Ms. Price which school we wanted to go to, but we didn't decide how we wanted to handle that. So before we move forward, I think we need to resolve that.
Okay. You want to pick two schools?
Maybe read the names of the schools and somebody just volunteer to go. I don't know.
That's fine.
I'll take Black Fox and Hobgood. Unless somebody else wants them. I'm just picking two.
Are we just shelling out?
Yeah.
I'll take Discovery and Northfield.
I'll take Pitter and Casey Lane.
Overall in scales.
Okay.
Sorry, Millie's got to slow down. Sorry, Millie.
Pitter and Casey Lane. One close and one far.
Overall in scales.
Dr. Brown, you jump in there. You're the one who brought it back up.
I'll take Bradley and Mitchell Nilsson.
Is that all of them?
Siegel.
I'll take whatever's left.
Well, I need some.
I love all the schools, so I'll just take whatever.
What schools do we have left?
Okay, so we've got Black Fox, Hopfield, Discovery, Northfield, Pitter, Mason Lane, Overall Creek, Scales, Bradley, Mitchell Nelson, Siegel, the next one.
Reese Rogers.
Bruce Rogers.
I'll take Ridge Rogers.
You're just Siegel.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Next item. Mr. Barrett?
I don't know if we were still talking about the resolutions or proposed resolutions, but there was several other school districts that proposed resolutions about Tennessee Ready and the year hold harmless for this year for the test score. And I might get it wrong. Dr. Gilbert can correct me. But this year, I guess the test scores are going to count on teachers' evaluation. They've done a lot of changes, or it's a new test, so I don't think that's fair to have a new test count towards your evaluation if you're brand new to it. So I would like to pass a resolution as us as a board in support of asking the legislature to pass a year hold harmless for this year, so it doesn't count on the resolution. Is that what you were?
If the board chooses to do that, and I don't know whether other boards are, but I think it's really important that you also have, in addition to teachers, that you have anything associated really with 10 Ready held harmless. So that would include your schools, your school district, your administrators,
director, all of that.
I do remember when the commissioner was here and spoke that day at the chamber that her comments were that we were going into some new testing, and test scores were probably not going to be as good as what they had been in the past, and I think she suggested maybe 10% on the evaluation.
That is what the law had changed to, that the 10% of the 35% would be this year's test scores, but you still, the impact of that is still large, and certainly the impact of the schools and the districts, because you're going to have you will have grades still associated with schools. You will have, just as you have scores associated with teachers and also with administrators. So it's a real, the hold harmless year needs to happen now, and it needs to happen for teachers, and it needs to happen for anything associated with 10 Ready. This needs to be a year when our students are getting used to online assessments, when we really learn what the assessment looks like, when we learn what the accommodations look like for our ELL students and for our special ed students. And so as far as comparing districts to districts and coming up with a score and a bell curve, I just think there are too many variables that are associated with it, and that's Linda Gilbert's personal opinion.
I agree. Yes, ma'am.
What was the normal, or what was the original situation? 10%, 20, and then 35?
Your amount still does not change. It's still 35%, but what that will look like is you will have 10% will come from this year,
right.
25% will come from the 2 previous years. Then next year it will change, and you will have 10% this year, 10% next year, and then 15%, and then the third year you will have it finally will come. Oh, geez, Miss Rainier. I don't have it in front of me. But anyway, it's 10% this year. You still have 35%. So basically, that changes one of your years when you get that 10. Right. You have 10 here, and you have the other 25 here. It eventually changes even what the score for last year will be as far as percentages. Mm-hmm. I think there are just a lot of. I don't think any school district in this state can say with true confidence that we know exactly what the test looks like, we know exactly how our students are going to react, and we can assure that for some students that we are measuring what they know instead of how many keystrokes they can do. And I'm not sure whether we know yet really. I understand that we have now the list, but what those accommodations are going to look like for some of our most at-risk students, and it concerns me.
And those are the ones who impact the scores system-wide and school-wide.
They
so
do
drastically.
But it impacts that student first. And so right. To think that at 6th grade, because the band will be 6th to 8th grade now, to think that there are students who are not working and cannot work perhaps at 6th grade level, maybe students that have been in this country for just a little over a year. Mm-hmm. They're going to take a test on 6th grade level that can have a Lexile level that, since it's a 6th to 8th grade span, that can go all the way up to 10th grade, is a problem. So I think that we will learn a lot. I think we've learned a lot from the practice tests we've taken, and I appreciate very much all the information the state has given us, and I think they have been very forthcoming with information, but I think it's very different for us to have a lot of information, and then I can know a lot about things, but until I actually encounter them and experience them, I really don't know them. Right. And so I think that it would be wise to have a year of hold harmless for anything associated with 10 Ready. I'm very much for rigorous standards, but I'm very much for making sure that what we're assessing is what our students know instead of a test format.
Well, I think while we're in the mode of working on resolutions, you should just add this one as well.
What I would like to do is for either Mr. Campbell to check with the chair of Rutherford County or for me to talk with Mr. Odom, see if they're going to do any resolution and see if we can get similar verbiage. I don't think that this particular resolution is as critical as far as time as the voucher. And so if you don't mind, if you all want to decide tonight that you want to have a resolution drawn, as far as what that resolution actually says, I'd like to see if we can get close to what Rutherford County may or may not be able to do. But I do think it's important for us to have it not only for the teacher scores, but also for administrators and schools.
Agreed.
I will contact Mr. Blair.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we need a motion to do that?
All right.
Do they need a motion?
Yeah, we need.
Okay.
I'll make a motion. We go ahead, proceed with the resolution for the hold harmless for Tennessee Ready teachers, administrators, and the schools and the students.
Second.
All right. We have a second. Somebody did. Ms. Ranier did. Thank you. Any other discussion?
I have.
All right.
I'd like to hear the opposing side to that. For example, if we didn't look for a resolution for that, what good could come out of this? There must be something that the state is looking for. Yeah.
Well, I think that there is real validity in looking at the standards and making the standards more rigorous, not harder, but more rigorous. I think what I'm afraid of is by pushing the test. For example, we have the first part of the test in a couple of weeks. Okay, so I want our teachers to take the standards and to have students develop complex thinking that can be applied to real world. Otherwise, we're just making things harder. So I support the standards wholeheartedly, and I want an assessment that matches the standards. The difficulty that I personally am having, I think, is, so the good is that we finally should have an assessment that matches our standards. That is the good. The good is that these standards should prepare our children if we do them right and we don't make them harder, but we use them for actually complex tests that really look more like what we have to deal with every day as adults. Then I think that the benefit to our children will be tremendous. So I'm very supportive of that. The side that I was talking about as far as the resolution has to do as much with the timing and the preparation.
Dr. Brown?
In your tenure as director, how many times have the standards and the tests changed?
Well, I actually, and I should send you the PowerPoint. I actually, when we met with principals in December, I listed all the changes. So we had, oh, jeepers. Okay.
Just in rough.
We had the Tennessee Diploma Project, which changed the high school requirements. And at that time, that is when we found out that the proficiency, that's when the state got the F, and so we moved down the proficiency level. And so we had some of our standards that changed then. Oh, jeepers. Then after we went to what we thought was Common Core, then we found out that we really had a lot of what were called SPIs, which were the old standards, still tested. So we shifted and brought the SPIs back. And then, again, this year we're moving more toward the Common Core. So probably 3 or 4 times, I guess, in some fashion.
Yeah. So that's why it's important to let this settle out and then use a valid measure for how well the teachers, students, and systems perform.
Right. When teachers are worried about that test in February, even, it would be better if it were going to be in May. Then there is all of this curriculum, like 80% of the major part of the grade, and I hesitate to use that, but it's either 60 or 80. Is it 80? 80%, thank you, principals, of the major part of the grade really needs to be taught by then. Now that's shifting a lot of scope and sequence. So that is the reason, you remember back in the fall, we brought teachers together because we said we've got to have a scope and sequence that matches when the assessment's going to hit. Mm-hmm. And so thankfully the teachers understood that. And it's very difficult to say that you're going to have 80% of the major content of the grade taught by February. So that too has been a change. It's the standards and learning the standards and trying to get in depth with the standards. But then it's okay, here's our timeline, so all that shifts. And what we're hearing, not just from our district, but from other districts, is that there seems to be this rush. They're not sure that the students are really mastering and understanding, which then makes the work hard.
Ms. Ranier?
Well, the thing that bothers me is you saying this now, because when we had the luncheon with Dr. McQueen, I asked her specifically, will this test that you're giving, the first portion of this test in February, only assess what the students have learned through that point rather than the entire year? And she said, oh, yes.
And that's true, but what the students have learned up to that point has to be this much. And again, in all fairness to the State Department, I think they have pushed out as much information as they could push out, and I think school districts have appreciated the communication. I've certainly appreciated the communication and the honesty that's there. It's just it's very difficult when you're in a school system, and with the variances we have. With the standards and with wanting to meet the needs of each individual child, there has to be some time for planning. There has to be some time for reflecting on what has happened with the teaching and how do we need to improve. And that's hard to find.
It is.
So, Ms. Phillips, online testing, I understand that's the way the world is going. The rigor of the assessment, the rigor of the standards, but we just need time to adapt to that.
I'd like to reply to her comment.
Okay.
Yes, and there's a part of me, and I understand that, and there's a part of me that says, if in 10 years the standards have changed 3 or 4 times, that would mean in 3 or 4 times, if we were doing a resolution each time, that we would have to do a resolution 3 or 4 times within a decade saying hold our teachers harmless. But my opinion is, let in some ways just let that fall and let our teachers do their work and not worry too much about what it says that first year, even if they don't, I don't know what the state is able to do. I mean, can they do something to our teachers if we kind of ignore that part of it? I mean, is there any way they can hurt our teachers if we kind of just ignore that?
And I think you're right. I don't think it's so much the assessment. I think it's the accountability that's associated with assessment. It's very different if we can take the assessment and as we do all the time, and we can grow from it and learn from it and change our thinking. But when you're taking that assessment and you know a score is going to appear publicly about how you're doing as a school and how you're doing and that's where the hurt comes. I will repeat what superintendent said in Williamson County. He said, I'm not going to fire a teacher if she's a level 1 teacher. Okay. Now, if she's a level 1 teacher and you've got a bunch of other stuff going on, but as far as letting go teachers, that doesn't concern me. But because the good teachers are going to stay regardless of what their scores are. But I think there is, when you are on the front page of the paper, as systems will be across the state and schools across the state, and teachers are associated with that, it does begin to, I don't care how much the director says, I just want you to do good teaching, not worry about the test scores. It's almost impossible to do that.
I hear you. I understand where you're coming from now. Thank you.
Dr. Brown?
Also, your comments might be valid if all the teachers stayed in our system for their entire teaching career. But we live in a very mobile society, and if we've got teachers moving out of state trying to get teaching jobs and they've got very low scores on the tests that will follow them as far as the quality of their teaching skills, that will definitely have an effect on them. So, yes.
That's true.
Okay. Next item.
You have a motion and a second on the floor.
Oh, do we? I forgot.
Resolution.
And the motion was Mr. Barrett's motion for the
Resolution for
resolution.
hold harmless
Okay.
for Tennessee Red.
And we have a second. Thank you, ma'am. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you very much. All right. Now, next item.
This is a new record. This is the longest Gary Anderson has not spoken at a board meeting. So at this point, I'm turning the rest of this over to Mr. Anderson.
Help me, Chairman Campbell.
Are you done?
Nice job, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
This is the boring part of the meeting then, Dr. Gilbert. It's the 50% time of the year. We're halfway through in the fiscal year. We are still in the red as we normally are at this time of year. Last year at this time, we were in the red $2,633,000, so we're in slightly better shape than we were last year at this time. On the revenue side, the really good news is the economy through December is very healthy, and our sales tax are up $479,000, and our property tax collections were up $325,000. And so those are good signs for the obviously for the economy. Our overall revenue coming in at a 42.2% clip, which also was a good number. Last year we were at 40% at this time, 40.4. So that's good. Our expenditures are up 2% as well, and the reason they're up, of course, is because we have added more teachers, more students, more computers, more textbooks, etc. And when I go through the enrollment numbers, you'll see what I'm talking about on that, because we have grown again over last year. So if does anyone have any questions on the financial report? Okay. The next one is the personnel report, and Dr. Gilbert handles the personnel part.
If you have any, they are before you. If you have any questions with personnel, I prefer that you give me a call, but they are there. We've hired some folks, and we have some people that have moved, and so and some that have decided to retire. So that's what you have before you.
Okay. The enrollment report is we are up over last year, at the end of the year, 374 students.
Looking at that.
We grew from December till January 7th. When I did this report, we grew a total of 42 students in that time. So that obviously is a big jump, and that happens over the holiday time when people have a chance to move. Our average attendance number dropped all the way down 1% to 97%, which is still an awesome percentage. And of course, during that time of year in December, is really the cold season. Our pupil-teacher ratio for K through 3 stands at 19.0, and 4 through 6 stands at 21.63. Average pupil-teacher ratio of 19.92. We have, as of January 7th, and I keep using the date because it changes daily, we had on that date 8,437. The 20-day period ended today, so that's why you don't have anything updated, because it just ended today, and that'll be out. I'll have that for you at our next meeting, so you can see what we've actually ended up growing for the next 20-day period. Growth money, the state typically sends out information about growth money by January 15th. They're a little behind. They said it'll be the first week of February. We do anticipate growth money coming to us, but I will not know that until your next meeting, because the state hasn't released any information yet.
Okay. Any questions on either? Ms. Renier?
Did we add a pre-K, a peer pre-K somewhere since Christmas?
A peer pre-K. Mr. Marlin? A peer pre-K?
Did we
Add one since Christmas?
We've added one to Northfield, yes.
That's what I thought. Okay. It's okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we have anything else to come before this board tonight? Ms. Smith?
I just want to say thanks again for all these special treats from the kids. I can't believe that y'all had time, after the snow day to cram in some art. But I really appreciate it. That's very thoughtful.
Very sweet.
Mr. King?
Dr. Gilbert, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to ask you a simple question.
Okay.
Last meeting, I asked, and because I knew what was coming with the snow and the ice, I said, is it possible for Murfreesboro City to be in school and Rutherford County to be out of school? And you answered yes, in case people asked. If you wouldn't mind, like Nancy Phillips likes to say all the time for the viewers at home, would you mind going into what makes up your decision to cancel classes? I did not realize everything that you go through and all the people involved to make that decision. Would you mind just describing everything that you do to make that call?
Well, I have a smart aleck answer, which is I throw my husband out if he falls down. But that's not really true. Although that would be the easiest thing to do. Typically, if we know what I like to do is call it as early as we can. This one was difficult because we were getting predictions that it was going to hit at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, which if that's the case, then I know that I can get it in a day of school. But then when they kept moving it up, then it became really, it's tough because you're having to go on what the weather forecast is saying. So the latest forecast that we heard, which was right, I guess about 8:30 that night, was that it was going to hit right in the prime time. We have to have 3 hours to get our buses. And so it's really important. When I was saying that 6 o'clock would have been fine because we would be out of the way as far as our buses would be off the road. But if it were going to hit at 2 o'clock, that means that we would have to be dismissing by 11 o'clock that morning in order to get them out. So when it really kept moving up, so we look at the forecast. I typically call dispatch to make sure that they're seeing what kind of wrecks have you had, what is it looking like out there. Last year, I know there was a time when they told me we really think it's going to get icy. Larry Williford has I don't know what you call it, but he can look at the road temperature and the bridge temperature. And where that comes into play is when we made the call about yesterday. I had already made the call, and he said, good call, because the bridge temperature was like 14 degrees, even though the weather, the outside temperature may have been 30, but it had been so cold that the bridges, so we knew that was going to freeze. So I listened to the forecast. I'm going to call dispatch. I typically am going to call and see if it's already snowed. Then I'm going to wake up Lisa at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then I go on the road. And if she's awake, sometimes she goes with me. So the other afternoon, she was out at part of the schools, and I was out at the other part of the schools. One thing we've learned, for example, is that the pavers are easier to keep frozen than the others. So I'm going to go Florence Road, I'm going to go Cason Lane, and I'm going to go all the way to Black Fox and then come back around to Siegel and check not only the roads but also check the subdivisions, check the sidewalks. There are some spots like behind Siegel, behind Cason, where you don't get the sun, to make sure that that's good. So it's actually a check. So it's checking with police, checking with the folks like Larry who know what they're talking about. What's happened as far as the ice melt? Do you think that it's melted or not? And if he knows that the weather's coming, he's going to be out there early and going to make sure it's spread. And then I'll call Gary and tell him we're open or we're closed. Ava, who is our transportation person, to let her know, because the buses roll by 5:30, 5:45. So it has to be made by then in the morning. And then I've already said we have to have 3 hours in the afternoon. I'm going to let Sandy Shealy know, because she's going to be able to prepare, let the cafeterias know whether or not they're going to have food or where it's going to be. Who else? Who am I missing? Ralph with ESP, let him know and see what's happening there and to make sure we're covered there. So it's a process, but the primary decision is whether we can get our students and our staff to school safely. Mm-hmm. And so I feel pretty confident with today. I did not feel confident at all with yesterday.
Well, like I said, I don't think people realize how many people are involved in making that decision and the work behind it. I admire what all y'all do.
It's the job, Mr. King. It's the job.
One of the things you talked about was the decision is behind because of the buses.
Right.
what's the percentage of our students that ride the school bus? It's significant.
We have over 3,000 students that ride the bus every day.
And I think that's an important figure for people to understand.
It is.
3,000 kids on school buses.
And we have families that if we can let them know early enough, then they can arrange. It's really hard when it hits, like last year, it hit pretty close to 5 o'clock, and that's tough in the morning because you know those families have already planned for the day. So we do, families try to let you know as soon as we can.
Well, Lisa Trail and James Evans are the most popular people in Murfreesboro.
I'm glad Mr. King brought that up because I just want to take a moment to say I heartily support every call you've made because every call you've made has been in the best interest of our children. So, and that's what counts.
Well, I appreciate that. I've been lucky.
I think we are blessed in our county and our city that we have two directors that look out for not only the safety of students, but also you've got safety of employees as well. And sometimes the streets may look clear, but the parking lots are not so clear.
Well, you know, and another nod to our transportation department, and I remember this from last year, when we went through the real bitter winter and the cold temperatures. Other school districts had buses that just couldn't run, and ours didn't because of the way the staff maintained the buses. They had the warmers that we'd even put into the budget a year or two ago. That saved us a lot of money and a lot of trouble. But again, the transportation part, you don't hear that coming out of here. You know, when we have bad weather, when we call it, the buses run and run good. I mean, it says a lot.
Yeah.
I think going back to the very first thing that we did tonight, I think that really is a tribute to the board and the support you have given the children. You know what's happening in the district. You're very aware of what's going on. And also to the council for their support because they have supported us wholeheartedly, and I think they have a school district they can be proud of, and I think it's because of the leadership that you all demonstrate and the leadership of the council.
All right. Anything else come before this board tonight? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Have a good evening.